guys, Miss Momo here. So today I'm doing my top 10 head-scratching facts out of US history. Note this is only the United States history. If you want me to do your country, leave a comment down below and I may end up doing yours. I won't deny that history sometimes leaves us wondering why events played out the way they did, or even why people acted or said certain things. I mean, I've always wondered why the Roman Emperor Caligula declared his horse Incontinus as his consul and the mayor of Rome. Was Caligula just mad, or did he troll the men who were in the Roman Senate? Today, I'm going to focus on, in what my opinion, are the top 10 head-scratching facts out of the United States histories. This ranges from a flood of molasses to a war over a pig, and some of these moments will just leave you wondering, what were they thinking and scratching your head? So let's get into it. Number 10. Florida bans all electronic devices in the state. Starting off this list with a major blunder from my home state back in 2013. Florida is notorious for strange and stupid news stories. We have sites dedicated to Florida criminals. That's how bad it is. And other news stories included the Florida State Steel having "In dog we trust" instead of "In God we trust." And we recently had a man arrested for killing his imaginary friend. So there has to be some bizarre historical fact to come out of this state. And it happened back in 2013. You see, Florida lawmakers decided they wanted to ban all internet cafes because of illegal gambling. Sounds innocent enough, right? Very wrong. Someone who drafted the bill had a major issue with how to word it, because the bill that they actually passed would ban all electronic devices in the state, meaning no more computers, no more smartphones, and no more tablets. Smartphones and tablets, a teacher's dream, the computer not so much. This law is actually still on the books. It's CSHB 155, prohibiting of all electronic gaming devices. And it reads, prohibits of electronic gambling devices, reserves provision relating to drawing by chance offers by nonprofit organizations, game promotions in connection with sales of consumer products or services, amusement games or machines, amusement centers, racketeering activities, and promotional offers provide legislative funds and declare. So they just said that literally your cell phone's a gambling device because you're able to play Angry Birds on it. Needless to say, Florida got a lot of flack in the media about this, and the bill was somewhat rewritten, but it's still on the books. You can go check it out for yourself. Great job, Florida. Number 9. The firing on Fort Sumner. Now, everybody knows Fort Sumner as the start of the American Civil War. This was a battle started on April 12th and lasted till April 14th, 1861. Now, you may be asking yourself, why is this on the list? It doesn't seem like a head-scratching moment. Well, let me explain. You see, the Confederate leader, T.G.T. Beauregard, more famous for his leadership at the Battle of Bull Run, or Manassas, whichever one you want to call it, was in charge of firing upon the fort. The Confederate forces were anywhere between 500 to 600 men, while the Union only had 85 in the fort. And the two-day cannon bombardment, you'd think there'd be some loss of human rights. Wrong again. No one actually died in the Battle of Fort Sumner. Well, at least no humans. You see, a Confederate donkey died during the battle, and I can already hear the comment section thought it was hit by a cannonball. Duh. Wrong again. Actually, the donkey simply died of a heart attack. So, the Battle of Fort Sumner had no human casualties, no animal casualties, and the only thing that died during this battle was a donkey from a heart attack. Yet this kicks off the American Civil War, which is the bloodiest war in U.S. history. Kind of a head-scratcher how nobody died in that two-day bombardment. Number 8. The Aroostook War, also known as the Pork and Beans War. Now, the Aroostook War was a conflict between the United States and the United Kingdom between 1838 and 1839 over the borders with Maine and New Brunswick. This war was fought, and the term war is used very loosely in this fact, over what we see every single day, which is trees. They were fighting this war over lumber, and both sides will call out their militias, but they actually never engage in fighting. But there is a group of people who end up fighting. It's the hardy lumberjacks of the region. According to some accounts, these loggers would chase down men from the other country with their axes, trying to claim the lumber as their own. It is also reported that when the loggers' axes broke, they would still fight, throwing whatever they could find their hands on, sometimes turning into a giant food fight, hence the Pork and Beans War. War, according to some myths. In the end, the Webster-Ashe Treaty ended this in 1842, which showed the borders between Maine and New Brunswick. And the war actually did have 38 non-combatant deaths. Wonder what they died from. Was it a falling tree? Number 7, the Pig War. Okay, so we just got through a war with the United Kingdom over lumber. Now we have a war with the United Kingdom over a pig. Yes, I said a pig. Now, when you look up the Pig War, make sure you type in 1859 because there's several of these around the world. Now, this conflict starts on San Juan Island, which is between Vancouver Island and Washington State. Now, once again, the loose terms of a treaty to describe where the borders are kicks this off, and once again, you should not write your documents vaguely. If you want to make a point, make sure you put it in there. Listen to everybody who's writing papers right now. Now, both sides were living on San Juan Island very peacefully until an American farmer had to go and ruin it by killing a British farmer's pig. Yes, you heard me right. This whole war, loosely used again, was started over a pig, and a pig is the only death in this war. Now, the British farmer demanded that the American farmer pay for his dead pig after the American farmer shot the pig for rooting around in his garden, but the American refused, and the British farmer called on the British troops to arrest him and drive all the other Americans off the island. Well, of course, the American troop will respond and creates a very tense Mexican standoff. No, wait, it's a Canadian standoff, eh? There was a major buildup of troops, but in the end, everything was worked out peacefully, and the British will leave the island in 1862. So we fought a war with Britain over logs and pigs. Wow, American history is unique. Number 6, the Dare Stones. Now, we've all been taught about the lost colony of Roanoke and the mystery that surrounds it. For many years, people believed that the colonists had fled to a friendly native tribe because of the carving Croatown in one of the trees. But this theory was challenged when, in 1937, a California tourist named L.E. Hamden stumbled across a strange stone. It had words carved in English, and with it the name Eleanor Dare. It shocked him so much he took it to Emory University, where it was studied by Dr. Hayward Jefferson Pierce, a professor of American history. Dr. Pierce felt the stone was actually true and authentic, and he declared that this was a new key in the Roanoke story. And by 1940, there was 47 other stones chronicling the story of this lost colony and the lost people. Now, at the time, a lot of people had dismissed the stones as fake, and even today, a lot of people still believe they're a historical hoax. Even after they were declared authentic in 2015, this has led to a great divide among historians. It's one of those mysteries I don't think we'll ever have solved, but it's really cool to think about. Just trying to figure out what happened to the lost colony of Roanoke. Number 5, the First Amendment does not have separation of church and state in it. Alright, now this is one that really I emphasize as a teacher when I'm teaching this, but I get this a lot. The First Amendment. When people quote the First Amendment at me, they always say separation of church and state, and I have to pull it out to show them that it doesn't actually exist. There's nowhere in the First Amendment text that the phrase separation of church and state exists. For all those who are going to try and quote this at me, here is the First Amendment verbatim. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise therefore of, or abridge the freedom of speech or press, or the right of the people to peacefully assemble and petition the government for redressing of grievances. Now, tell me where you see that phrase. If anybody sees it, please tell me, because you don't see it in there. The phrase is actually put in there by Justice Hugo Black in a 1947 Supreme Court decision. The case was Jefferson versus Board of Education, where he wrote in his ruling, in the words of Thomas Jefferson, the clause against establishing a religion by law was introduced to erect a wall of separation between church and state. Now, Justice Black is also kind of misquoting because he's referring to an earlier law Jefferson passed, which was the Virginia Resolution of Separation of Church and State, which is where we kind of got this concept. Now, people just went running with this, claiming it was in the First Amendment, and this has been a continuation that has continued on since that moment. So please stop quoting it at your history teachers, because they just end up laughing at you. Number 4. The Great Molasses Flood. I bet you're all asking, a flood of molasses? When did that happen? And why wasn't there any pancakes? Gosh, molasses and pancakes are good, but I can assure you this tragic event actually did take place January 15th, 1919 in Boston. Better question, why does everything happen in Boston? Yeah, the Boston Massacre where 5 people died, the Boston Tea Party, the trial where the victim of a murder victim's ghost testified on her own behalf. Oh wait, I'm getting off track. On January 15th, 1919, a giant molasses tank owned by the United States Industrial Alcohol Company in the north end of Boston burst, rushing molasses down the street and flooding them around 12:30. Now, the tank had been hurriedly built in 1915, and the molasses was actually being used for explosives. You see, molasses has several different uses, some of them being the creation of sugar, rum, and TNT, apparently. I didn't know molasses went boom until I learned about this event. Now, the tank itself held over 2 million gallons of molasses, and the reason why it burst was because it was built in such a hurry that they didn't do the proper safety precautions, and the rivets started to burst. And when the rivets burst and the tank failed, 2 million gallons of molasses went rushing down Boston streets around 35 miles per hour. This led to the death of 21 people and the injury of 150 more. At first, the country really wasn't paying attention to this until the death toll started to rise, and then there was a backlash at the United States Industrial Alcohol Company, forcing them to settle in court for approximately $600,000, which is approximately $7,000 for every family who lost somebody in the flood. Number 3, Andrew Jackson's wild party. So we all know Andrew Jackson as the father of the Democratic Party, the hero of New Orleans, and the 7th president of the United States. But what you didn't learn about Old Hickory is he could throw one of the best parties in the nation. He came into the office March 4th, 1829, and he held the inaugural party, which had become a tradition, but he did it his way. He allowed everybody into the White House because he was the president of the people, and let the party go all night long. He actually climbed out of a window at one point in time because the White House got so crowded he was afraid of being suffocated, and he ends up leaving the party and going to bed, and then coming back the next morning to find out several of the attendants refused to leave the bash, which had pretty much ended by this point in time, or so Jackson thought. Now, Jackson, being the wise man he was, told the White House butlers to take the extra kegs of beer and place it a mile down the road. After they did, they announced that the free beer was a mile down the road, and the guests hurried off to find the keg. After that keg was done, another keg was set up another mile down the road, and this continued until they got them out of the DC area. Now, as the Democratic symbol is the donkey, you guys may be wondering about why Jackson chose it. Well, it's because one of his opponents called him a jackass, which is another name for a donkey, and it kind of stuck. So that is why the Democrats have the symbol of the donkey. Number 2, Jefferson, the forgotten almost state. Now, we've all heard the threat that Texas could leave the United States at any time because they don't agree with the laws, but this almost happened in California in October of 1989. A large group of people didn't want to be a part of the state of California anymore, so they were going to break away and make their own state. They had even created a plan to apply to become a legal state, becoming the 51st state in the United States. And actually, this fight is still going on. They have recently passed a few referendums in the northern area of California where Jefferson is actually located, and if they do leave California, its population would rank 36 out of the nation. How crazy is that? They even have their own state flag, and they do want to break away from California for good. I mean, that's crazy. Think about how it's going to change the electoral votes and the electoral map if Jefferson actually becomes a state. Now, up until this point, you've only heard me talk. Well, I got a friend to record number 1, and I'm so excited for it. And I'm sorry I didn't tell you guys before, but I wanted it to be a surprise. Well, here's number 1, and welcome to my very special friend.
So yes, I had to include this because this is one of, if not the best story out of U.S. history that I love talking about. Joshua Abraham Norton had been a successful businessman until investing all his money in rice, then trying to condemn the market in California where he lost it all in 1849. After this, he disappeared until 1859, re-emerging in San Francisco, declaring himself Emperor of the United States. He would call newspapers to him and have them interview him as he strutted about in a full military uniform. The newspaper printed the humorous story, thinking it was good for some laughs. But little did they know that Emperor Norton would gain a fan base. Later, he added on to his humble title of Emperor of the United States and Protector of Mexico. He even went as far as declaring on October 12, 1859 that the U.S. Congress was null. What is really crazy is Emperor Norton declared that would be a bridge, as a suspension bridge, that would connect Oakland to San Francisco. and actually designed a model of it. He also hosted actual royals who would come see this Emperor of the United States, and when he died January 8th, 1880, the Who state mourned his death. Now, there is a bridge that does connect the two cities, the San Francisco-Oakland Bay Bridge. The construction for that had started in 1933 and was finished in 1936. Now many people in California want to rename the bridge the Emperor Norton Bridge.
Well, guys, that's all I have for today, and I hope you like my 10 head-scratching facts. Tell me which one you like the most, and if there's a fact you thought I missed, well, leave a comment below. Bye, guys.